diplomatically for the Cubans, especially on the back, of course, of the suffering that the Cubans have gone through with the two hurricanes that have recently hit them. That is one of the particular things that we are now part of here in Melbourne, working together with that is the Centre for Latin American Studies and Solidarity, working with the Australia-Cuba Friendship Societies here, and in particular in Sydney and in Western Australia, have got up and running a petition around the blockade, in particular in the context of the hurricanes. What, of course, the Cuban government is pushing for is at least some sort of respite in this context. And there is some sympathy for that, as people would have seen from the call from the US bishops supporting at least the temporary suspension of the blockade to allow the Cubans to get the necessary foodstuffs in particular. There is a real danger of food shortages in Cuba in the next 6 months to a year because of these two hurricanes, which have hit particularly hard. So in that context, there's been an international campaign mounted or remounted, re-energised. We're also happy to be able to say here that as of the last month or so, and as a result of the tour of Maria Guerrero, one of the sisters of the Cuban Five, there will now also in Melbourne be a Cuba Five, Free the Cuba Five committee, which has been long overdue. It's been one of the few cities where there hasn't been such a city, which will mean such a committee, which will mean that in Melbourne we'll at least be able to continue the campaign and show solidarity on the two key issues that the Cubans are really fighting on at the moment, which is the blockade, of course, ongoing, and the situation with the Cuban Five. For those of you who are lucky enough to see Maria Guerrero here recently, she really added or brought a human element to that story, and it is quite incredible. To me, to be honest, I'd kept up with some of the details, but I'd never really read some of the family detail and the suffering that's going on around that case, and of course how legally absurd the case is against the Cuban Five. So, as I said, finally we'll be able to do a little bit more about that here in the Melbourne context, and we'll keep you posted on that. Obviously that'll be a committee open to anyone who's keen participating, and we hope it'll be initiated largely through the unions, through THC, and through the unions who supported the tour, the MUA and so forth. Thank you again for coming, and feel free to say a few words here at the here at the protest. Thanks. David, did you want to say something? Do you want me to hold the mic? Are you going to film? Yeah.
Two organizations, for the Freedom Socialist Party and for Radical Women. And both of our organizations, over our 40 plus years of existence, have defended the Cuban Revolution. We've defended the revolution because of its example to working classes everywhere of what we can also achieve. And also because of the revolution's potential to lead an international, to globalize revolution and bring down this brutal, wicked capitalist system. And we congratulate the Center for Latin American Solidarity and Studies for mobilizing this rally today, because it's now as urgent as ever that the inhumanity of this blockade be exposed. And Jorge was already giving a fairly good idea of how devastating and how destructive that blockade has been. And its whole purpose is nothing less than to starve Cuba to its knees, to crush its revolution. And we only need to listen to somebody like Barack Obama, who is now, we know, going to be the next president, to listen to his very characteristic doublespeak. So just as he talks about removing troops from Iraq, and we know that that actually means building up the military intervention in the